They mastered space, we mastered place. The Zephyrian Empire had conquered 17 star systems in the past century, each victory as methodical and efficient as the last. Commander Vextal stood in the observation deck of the Imperial Dreadnought, Dominion's Edge, watching the final human settlements on Kepler 4 for to be surrender, one by one. Crimson surrender beacons flickered across the planet's surface like dying embers. It would have been satisfying. The human beings had fought proudly for nearly 2 years, well behind Zephyrian technology, but they had outlived more races than most vanquished ones. Final tally, Commander, reported Sub-Lieutenant Carthex. 47 major centers of population, 132 smaller ones. Total human population, 4.7 million. Vextal nodded. It was a small prize by Imperial measures, but Kepler 4 for to be sat in a strategic location on the trade routes of the Outer Rim. Begin routine occupation procedures, he ordered. Send garrison troops to all key hubs. The routine never varied. Crushing force, instant submission, orderly assimilation. The conquered race would be a useful Imperial subject in a year. Its unique cultures lost in obscurity. So why did Vextal feel so empty, Commander? Carthex ended his thoughtful silence. We're receiving an odd transmission from the surface, from a location called Haven Valley. The transmission is .music, sir. On the main display, dozens of new signal sources lit up across the continents. Not surrender beacons, but something else entirely, a harmony of voices and instruments that pulsed with life. Are they mocking us? Vextal demanded. Unknown, sir, but it is a spreading pattern. Even colonies which have already surrendered are getting in on the transmission. Open a channel to the surface, he ordered. Vextal's voice rang out across the planet beneath. This is Commander Vextal of the Zephyrian Imperial Navy. Cease all unauthorized transmissions at once. The response came from what sounded like a young human female. Commander Vextal. This is Sarah Chen, speaking for the people of Haven Valley. We're not resisting, we're celebrating. Would you like to join us? During 3 millennia of Imperial history, not once had a conquered race ever encouraged their conquerors to a party. Celebrating what? Vextal asked, genuinely puzzled. Life, Commander, community. The fact that we're still here, still together, still human. Coming here in no way alters that, just that now, our neighbors have changed. We are not your neighbors. We are your conquerors. I know that, said Sarah, smiling warmly. But you still have to live somewhere, don't you? Would you care to go down and see what we've constructed? I think it would be interesting for you. The boldness stunned the whole bridge crew into silence. Military doctrine dictated that he should use ground forces right away. But something just didn't settle well with him. Prepare a shuttle, he said, finally. I want to see what these humans consider worth celebrating. The shuttle dropped as morning came over the continental mass. Vextal had anticipated a standard human habitation, functional buildings, defensive installations, the typical evidence of enforced organization. Rather, he discovered something that wouldn't be categorized. Haven Valley spanned a natural depression. But it didn't just occupy a cleared patch of land where they constructed things. The people had carefully integrated their habitat into the environment so that it took minutes for a stranger to discern where man-made construction stopped and where natural environment started. Buildings rose from the earth like organic growths. Their walls curved to follow natural contours. Gardens spiraled around homes in intricate patterns. Streams flowed through the community in networks of channels and pools that sparkled in the morning light. It is not built in conformity with a typical urban planning concept, observed Lieutenant Sekfar. The design is almost aesthetic, while Zephyrian cities were wonders of geometric perfection. Haven Valley sprawled as though it had grown, not been constructed. It was graceful in a manner having no utilitarian aim. They were greeted by a crowd. Not the glum, beaten people Vextal was anticipating, but people who were actually enthusiastic for company. Children ran back and forth among grown-ups, gesticulating. At the shuttle in Wonder Dot, Sarah Chen advanced, young with dark hair intertwined with flowers. She beamed, harboring not a hint of fear from these weapon-wielding Zephyrian guards. "Commander Vextal," she said, "welcome to Haven Valley. I'm so glad you could come. You speak for this settlement." "I speak on behalf of this settlement," Sarah corrected softly. "We don't actually have leaders in the classical sense." Before Vextal could decline a refreshment, youngsters encircled his gathering, brandishing cups of native fruit juice and small cakes. The fluid tasted sweet and deep, with a progression of flavors as it was consumed. "It is made from tamala fruit," Sarah said. "Everything that we consume here is from the ground itself. We have learned to live from what the planet gives us." As they proceeded into the settlement, Vextal itemized details. The curves weren't arbitrary, they funneled wind and light. The gardens weren't ornamental, they were integral ecosystems yielding food, materials, and climate regulation. "How long have you been here?" he inquired. "Haven Valley was started a quarter century ago. This is where I was born. As with all people, we have been roaming for some time." Every house was distinct, reflecting the personalities of its occupants. Gardens overflowed from rooftops. Walls were adorned with children's art. Wind chimes composed melodies of soothing sounds. An old man was whittling on his front porch. "Morning, Sarah. Come and meet our visitors from the heavens. This is Thomas Hendricks, our master carpenter," Sarah stated. "You? Not afraid?" Vextal asked. Thomas laughed. "Son, I've been frightened more than once. My first house burned down in a solar flare, my second in a plague, my third in a corporate war. Fear does not, however, get you anything built that's worthwhile. What are you making?" Thomas showed off an elaborate interlocking puzzle made from local wood, a story box. Each piece is a memory from our community's history. It helps remind us who we are and how we all fit together. Vextal studied master craftsmanship. Each item narrated a story in its form and embellishment, history of the colony inscribed in wood and fastidious detail. "How long did it take?" 3 years or so now. Good things don't happen overnight. Settlement was not just efficient, it was rich in symbolism. Corner spots held shrines for deceased community members. Gardens spoke with plant sequences. Walkways encouraged chance encounters. "Your infrastructure is unconventional," Vextal observed. "If you provide people with a space where they can be, they're gonna stick together," Sarah noted. They passed a workshop where humans worked on a sophisticated water purification system. While the basic principles were familiar, the implementation was genuinely innovative, adapted to local conditions with superior results. "This is impressive work," stated Vextal. "I worked for large companies once," stated lead engineer Maria Santos. "Technically demanding, but it felt empty. Here, I know who it is that I'm assisting. It makes a difference, and I see it." A hilltop, they overlooked the entire valley. The settlement stretched for kilometers, organic, integrated, alive in a way no Zephyrian city had ever been. "How many people live here?" "About 12,000. Everyone is connected by family, by job, by common interests. It's like a web touch one thread, and it all resonates." "That seems inefficient." "Maybe. It's hard, though. The whole community comes together when someone is in trouble." Sarah pointed to various sections. "Artists live there. That's our learning center. Children learn by participating. That section is food production, but everyone contributes. No central authority. They have councils for coordination, but decisions are made at the lowest level. The individuals that are impacted by those decisions." Vextal could not picture it as a successful system. The empire achieved efficiency by virtue of sharp hierarchies. But Haven Valley flourished. Citizens, robust, industrious, and actually contented. "Relieve me of the truth," he blurted out. Sarah's demeanor became serious. "We've had difficulties. The first years were hard. We lost people, made farming mistakes, had heated disagreements about organization. How have you handled these problems? Learning. Each failure taught us something. Each loss drew us closer. We made memorials for those whom we lost, but also strategies for preventing comparable losses. She nodded towards newly rebuilt structures. We lost a quarter of our living quarters 2 years ago when fire ravaged here. It was terrible. But we rebuilt better fire prevention, better emergency response, better design for resilience. Rebuilding as a community made our bonds stronger. You see failure as opportunity. We define failure as information. It reveals to us what is not working so that we might discover what will. As sunset approached, Sarah asked, "Do you want to hang out for dinner?" It's a community meal tradition when guests come. A banquet. In celebration of your conquerors. A banquet in celebration of fresh friends. All issues are less complicated when individuals have not eaten. Despite himself, Vextel found the invitation appealing. Very well, we will stay. The community meal was unlike anything in Vextal's experience. He'd sat at formal state dinners and military ceremonies. Precisely orchestrated events showcasing power and hierarchy. This was completely different. Tables, loosely in a spiral, allowed people to go from groups without any constraint. The children scurried between tables, helping in preparations and taking mouthfuls from willing adults. "How many are coming?" Lieutenant Sekfar asked. "Pretty much everybody," said Sarah. Community dinners are tradition, a time to share a meal, visit with friends, and get acquainted with newcomers. Everyone, children and families too. Seniors, people with medical issues. Of course, why would we leave anybody out? Parties in Zephyrian society are held on a basis of function and age level. More effective for homogeneous societies. That does sound lonely. Sarah stated quietly. Tables piled high with bewildering, diversitile locally grown produce mixed with extragalactic flair. Terran rice infused with Proxima Centauri spices. Altarian honeycakes offered by young people. "The diversity is remarkable," stated Vextel. "That's what happens when you're all immigrants," laughed Alina Vasquez, setting down soup. Everyone brings family recipes, and they all get mixed together. Food is a universal language. Vextel saw something in contravention of how he understood social relationships. People of varied backgrounds, ages, and specializations mingled freely in a manner indicating profound acquaintance and deference. In Zephyrian society, this kind of diversity would need judicious segregation. But here, differences looked like they were a strength. An old man talked hydroponics with a teenage girl. Children played in unison with teenagers. "How can you preserve social cohesion amidst all this diversity?" he inquired of Elena. "We don't control it, will affirm it. Each person contributes something distinct. Various skills, ways of looking at things, experiences. That's not a problem, that's a treasure. But there must be conflicts. Of course. But conflicts are opportunities to understand each other better. When people disagree, it's usually because they start from different assumptions. Once you understand where someone is coming from, you can usually work together." As the feast began, Vextel sat between Sarah and Thomas. The arrangement was entirely informal. People sat wherever they found space, an appealing company. No assigned seating. "Why seat people?" Thomas said. "Individuals can decide where they'd like to be. It makes for more interesting conversations when people are mixed up." In Zephyrian formal dinners, seating reflects social hierarchy. "That would be downright boring," stated Marcus, a young mathematics teacher. "By far, my best ideas actually come from communicating with individuals who have no concept of mathematics. New perspectives allow you to see things in a fresh way." The evening continued with music, stories, and laughter that echoed across the valley. As Vextel observed the humans celebrating not conquest or defeat, but simply the fact of being together, he began to understand something that challenged everything he thought he knew about civilization. They'd learned to navigate space. Maybe they'd even learned something even more valuable: how to be fully alive. You are an educator, among other things. I'm a musician too, a tolerable cook, and assist with our communication gear. Everyone here wears a number of hats. Vextel was getting a grasp on wearing multiple hats as a common practice in human society, but still found it hard to comprehend how such a system would be effective. How does a person maintain deep competency in a specialized field when they're accustomed to, or actually divide, their attention between several disciplines? Well, yes, we have people who have a special focus, said Marcus. But our feeling is that knowing a variety of things about community life makes everybody stronger in their core job. Let me illustrate that, Thomas broke in. I'm a carpenter, by trade, but they want me for helping in food production as well. The fact that I know how plants grow has made me a better wood selector for construction. It all relates to everything. The conversation was interrupted by musicians who had begun playing. A blend of traditional melodies from various human cultures adapted into something entirely new. Several diners began singing along in complex harmonies that seemed to arise spontaneously. Do you rehearse these musical performances? He asked. Not really, Marcus replied. Most of us know the basic melodies, and we just add our own parts as we feel inspired. That seems chaotic. That's improvisation, Sarah explained. It is. A musical conversation. Everyone is listening for what someone else is playing, and they add something that is fitting. This is composition in real time, he observed, fascinated despite himself. It's community in real time, Thomas corrected. We use it for problem solving, for planning projects, for just about everything that our group does. But how can you preserve quality? How can you prevent chaos? We don't avoid chaos, Alina contributed. We welcome it. When Hurricane Maria struck us 3 years ago, we needed to reshift our distribution of food within a span of hours. The solution that resulted was so superior to our initial setup that it became a permanent setup. You intentionally seek out unpredictable situations. We don't look for them, but we're not afraid of them either, Sarah said. Change is a given. The issue is whether or not you're going to resist it or dance with it. As the evening progressed, Vextel found himself drawn into conversations that ranged from technical discussions to philosophical debates about happiness. What struck him most was how naturally the humans moved between serious topics and light-hearted banter. Commander, said Dr. Amara Patel, who sat beside him, I'm intrigued by Zephyrian society. How are your societies structured? Vextel considered carefully. Zephyrian civilization is organized according to principles of maximum efficiency and social harmony. Each individual is assigned a role based on their aptitudes and society's needs. Clear hierarchies ensure smooth coordination and prevent conflict. That seems very structured, said Dr. Patel tactfully. Do people like playing the roles they're given? Personal enjoyment is not a priority. 'Tis a satisfaction in serving for the betterment of Zephyrian civilization. But suppose a person finds out they have abilities they cannot utilize in their occupancy position. The question caught Vextel off guard. The assignment process is highly accurate. Such conflicts are uncommon, but not impossible. No, not impossible. And when they actually happen, they are provided with support to better fulfill their designated function, he said finally. Dr. Patel nodded reflectively. We here have found that people tend to perform best when they're doing something they're passionate about. So we try to frame things so people can bring their strengths as well as try out some new areas of interest. Does not this create instability? Sometimes, stated Dr. Patel. Although, we have found that when people are intrinsically motivated for a task, they have shown themselves to be innovative as well as productive. Relate your biggest blunder, he burst out without warning. The expression on Dr. Patel's face became somber. About 8 years ago, we had an epidemic of what we called the wasting disease. It killed nearly 400 people, colleagues, family, friends, within 6 months. Horrible. How did you resolve the crisis? The solution didn't come from our medical knowledge or technology. It came from the children. The kids had been playing with local wildlife creatures that lived in the marsh areas. One of them noticed that The marsh creatures never got sick, even when everything else was affected by diseases. And this led to a cure. It led to insight. We investigated the creatures and discovered they had a symbiosis with a native fungus that produced immune-strengthening chemicals. The treatment not only cured the wasting disease, but made us resistant as well. A success. Story then, yes, in the end. But still, we lost 400 people. That failure made us pay attention to details which in other times we would have overlooked as insignificant. We convert everything into information, said Dr. Patel. Happiness, sadness, triumph, setback, everything is data that teaches us how to live better. As night fell, Vextel engaged in discussions that would have been inconceivable in Zephyrian society. The topic of water purification came up between a sanitation engineer and a musician, which gave rise to discussions of fluid dynamics. Farmers argued genetic modification with an ethicist and a poet, creating viewpoints none would have achieved in solitude. That is how we solve problems, Sarah explained. We bring people of diverse expertise and diverse experience. Solutions emerge out of the discussion. It seems inefficient, said Vextel. Sometimes, Sarah confirmed. Specialists get bogged down in assumptions, though. You get people from a variety of backgrounds together, they raise questions that a specialist would never think of asking. Give me an example, please. A few years ago, our atmospheric processors would continuously break down. Our engineers could not figure out why. The solution came out of a conversation between our lead engineer and someone on our art staff. The artist told our lead engineer that she saw breakdowns in repetitive patterns which reminded her musical composition rhythms. That made our lead engineer think in terms of resonance frequencies. Acoustic resonance was inducing mechanical breakdown. Exactly. When we recognized what the problem was, solving it was a simple matter-metal bell seeded a design modification, eliminating resonance patterns. Sir, broke in Lieutenant Sekvar, the fleet has sent messages asking for status reports. Tell the Admiral that this settlement requires extended assessment. Sir, she has specifically requested your immediate return to discuss occupation strategy. Inform Admiral Kethmer that I shall report when I have enough information. Until that time, we proceed with our evaluation. Sarah was troubled. Is there a problem, Commander? The issue is not with my superiors, stated Vextel. The issue is with how I understand what I have witnessed here. What do you mean? In our society in Zephyr, we have found peace by maintaining order. Every man knows where he fits and what he does. But it is not stability that I see here. It is something else. What would you call it? Vitality, said Vextel, who was taken aback. Your people are vibrant in a manner in which mine are not. You grow, you evolve, you transform, you create. You're not only surviving, you're thriving. The discussion was disrupted by a scene. Young boy had dropped a bowl of fruit salad, with pieces flying everywhere on the ground. Vextel was ready for anger or punishment. However, a number of people jumped out to clean up instantaneously while others consoled the upset boy. The issue was resolved in a minute, with all parties laughing again, including someone pulling out a fresh bowl. No one was upset, noted Vextel. Why would anyone be angry? Sarah asked. Accidents happen. The important thing is to take care of each other and fix whatever needs fixing. In Zephyrian society, that kind of carelessness would receive corrective training. And would that prevent future accidents? Perhaps. But it would also train the pupil in the risks of error. Exactly. Fearful children never learn how to take risks or be confident. We just as soon clean up a few spills as long as it ensures are raising kids who are not fearful of giving things a try. Once the official banquet subsided, Vextel figured the crowd would disperse. However, the humans didn't have those assumptions regarding where lines should be drawn. As dinner tables were cleared, fresh activities naturally arose. Musicians kept on playing. Dancers started dancing to rhythms. Storytellers assembled listeners relating tales that varied from casual anecdotes to elaborate legends. Does this party have a set end time? Vextel asked Sarah. Not exactly. She said, community events have a way of developing naturally. Folks attend as long as they're having a good time, and they float off when they're done. And this, acceptable. There are no regulations about noise, about public space usage. Sarah grinned. We're not a military base. We're a community. People are thoughtful of one another, but regulations are not needed in order for people to be thoughtful. Your society is not fluid in any way, observed Vextel. I suppose it is, Sarah agreed. We found that rigid structure usually gets in the way of actual human interaction. People have different needs, different energy levels, different interests. They entered a philosophy circle in which Dr. Lily Chen was facilitating a discussion on the concept of home. What makes a place feel like home? She was asking. Is it the physical structure, the geographical location, the people, or something else entirely? I think it's just feeling like you belong, a young woman explained. Home is where you're connected to something beyond yourself. Shared experience, Thomas posited. Home is made out of accumulated memories. It's a history with a location and with people in it. Commander Vextel, Dr. Chen said, you've traveled widely. What does home mean to you? Home is where one belongs by official designation, he stated, and suddenly saw just how poor that made it sound. But how does that feel? Dr. Chen pressed gently. I am not sure, he confessed. My residential placement is cozy and well-furnished. It meets my needs reasonably well. That's a description of a place, noted Marcus. But is it home? Another woman joined the conversation. Maybe the real question is whether home is a place you go to or a place you come from. I've lived in 7 different settlements. Each was a place to go to when I arrived, but only a few became places I came from, places that shaped who I am. Home is just as much identity as it is geographical, summed up Dr. Chen. Maybe more about identity than location, the woman replied. I could probably recreate the feeling of Haven Valley in other places with other people, but I could never recreate it just by copying the buildings. Home is what people build out of relationships, Vextel spoke deliberately. Then it cannot be granted or regulated by external authority. If belonging is a function of contribution, not designation, then social order is much more complicated. More sophisticated, likely, but stronger, posited Marcus. Relationships that are based on true affection are more robust than those held by sheer external force. But more tumultuous too, stated Vextel. More unpredictable. Chaos and unpredictability are not necessarily negative things, said Dr. Chen. They can be generators of creativity, innovation, and adaptation. The discussion continued for hours, ranging across topics from political theory to personal meaning. What struck Vextel most was how naturally the humans moved between abstract concepts and practical concerns. Time to get going, announced Dr. Chen at last as daybreak started. As she stood up, Sarah stood waiting with hot tea. Thought you'd be wanting some caffeine. It's been a long night. Well, what now, Commander? You go back to your ship and initiate routine occupation procedures. I'm not sure, he confessed. My instructions are precise, but my grasp has changed. Understanding has a way of complicating things, Sarah observed. It's much easier to follow orders when you don't really know what you're being asked to do. Am I supposed to neglect my responsibilities? I'm only saying once you know something, you're responsible for what you know. You can't pretend that you don't know what you know. Your people would resist integration, he asked. We'll have to adjust to whatever circumstances we're in, Sarah stated. However, we'll try as well to preserve what is valuable: our relationships with each other, our way of making decisions together. And if the Empire forbids such ways, then we'll have other ways of preserving our humanness. Communities like our own have thrived in many varieties of political arrangements. The details are less important than the basic dedication to treating one another with dignity. As they spoke, Lieutenant Sekvar came forward. Commander, there are priority messages from Admiral Kethmer. She requests your immediate return. Hexthal entered the shuttle, glancing back at Haven Valley in distinctly different eyes than when they first arrived. What once was a routine administrative procedure was now something complex and worrisome. Below them, Haven Valley went on with its daily routine, not knowing that its very existence had called into question basic assumptions concerning civilization, community, and what constitutes a life well lived. Admiral Kethmer monitored holographic screens, showing status on Operation Kepler integration. 46 of 47 major human colonies were taken successfully. Haven Valley alone still was in anomalous status. Commander Vextel's shuttle is requesting landing clearance, reported Communications Officer Ralthick. Give clearance. Call him into the war room now. When Vextel entered, he was impeccable, but something in his mannerism signaled subtle corrections. Commander, she stated without forward. Explain your delay in following standard occupation procedures for Haven Valley. Admiral found that this settlement needed prolonged evaluation before standard procedures could be systematically applied. Assessment extended. What are possible reasons that would necessitate extended assessment? The human habitat has social structures of organization that don't fit textbook models. Decentralization of decision-making is preferred over centralization. The distribution of resources is on the basis of community consensus over administrative efficiency. Admiral Kethmer's crest ridges stood on end with irritation. Commander, this is not an anthropological survey. This is imperial policy. With all due respect, Admiral, it is possible that things are more complex than procedures would expect. Vextel activated a holographic screen, beaming data from Haven Valley. The society demonstrates remarkable levels of innovation, efficiency in utilizing resources and social organization despite not having a formal government, code of law, and enforcement agencies. Admiral Kethmer studied the statistics in growing disbelief. By all ordinary yardsticks, Haven Valley would have been chaotic and unworkable. It, though, had better performance numbers than several long-standing imperial colonies. Have these numbers been confirmed? Several times, Admiral. The human beings have accomplished extraordinary things by following methodologies opposite to well-established principles of organizing societies. Irrelevant, Admiral Kethmer stated flatly. Non-standard procedures cannot exempt a population from routine integration procedures. But Admiral, as long as their approaches are yielding better results. Admiral Kethmer, Commander Vextel, was stopped by a cold, authoritative voice. You appear to be afflicted by a condition described in imperial medical texts as local cultural absorption.